bank. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Ayy, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Ayy, ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agent success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Revenova, the official TMS provider for the Freight Coach. You guys, I've been a broker for a long time, and the tools that are at your disposal with Revenova help you eliminate bouncing between systems, which improves your accuracy when you are managing multiple tasks throughout your workday. Plus, it's built into the Salesforce cloud, so your CRM is fully integrated with your TMS, eliminating yet another silo. In today's day and age, you are definitely concerned about the safety of your data. With Revenova, it's fully protected. They have cutting-edge security that keeps your information safe so you can focus on what matters most, and that's growing your business. Speaking of growing your business, with Rate and Lane IQ, you get real-time pricing and route recommendations, helping you optimize costs and improve operational efficiencies, which ultimately helps you make smarter decisions. If you are like me and have recurring shipments from non-EDI customers, they have intuitive cloning features that let you easily replicate previous shipments, saving both shipper and carrier rates with just a few taps. If you are ready to learn more, visit www.revenova.com to request a demo. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Friday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff here in regards to, choosing an ICP, building out your book of business, and most importantly, finding those things that work no matter what is going on in the market. I know in today's social media clickbait culture, it's always easy to talk about the hot button issues, but at the end of the day, we got to find a way to make things work no matter what. That's why our customers hire us. That's why our carriers work with us. And you can't play into the volatility, because it will lead you to an empty pipeline out there. Excuse me. But with that being said, also, I got to mention this with, everybody says logistics is a small industry. I just met this guy the other day, and this is about the closest of it to that, like, I've ever had about this being a small industry. It's got down to the fact that our families grew up next to each other, like almost on the exact same street. And that says a lot about the smallness of this industry. With that being said, I'd like to welcome Mr. Steve Gabrick on the show. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Chris. And yeah, it is a small world. 6 degrees of separation, I suppose. But thanks for having me, and shout out to Revenova for setting this up. We appreciate that as well.
No, absolutely, man. It's it is that it's the street that gets me, about it, like Delwood Golf Course. And it's a small world when somebody mentions Delwood, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Let's block that. But dude, Steve, you've been in this industry a long time, but I always like to start off the show, especially with the first time guest on here, man. How'd you get your start in freight? What brought you into transportation?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like everybody has a interesting story for how they stumbled into freight. I don't know, you don't meet that many people that it's just like, you know what? I'm graduating high school. I'm going to get my supply chain degree. And holy cow, I'm joining the freight. I want logistics and supply chain. It's becoming more sexy now from COVID on. Became the front page of the newspaper. But for me, after realizing I wasn't going to be a pro hockey player, I decided to go to college and followed my big brother to the same university. And he helped me with a resume, went to a career fair, stumbled upon a logistics company that the recruiter said, we work hard and we play hard. I'm a 20-year-old guy. I'm like, boy, seems like I can do both of those things really well. And at the time, and this was C.H. Robinson, at the time they did like a mini Hogan assessment, and turns out I was a good fit. And, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, and stumbled into that. And, I had 21 great years there. And now I've had the opportunity to do it with MVP Logistics for the last 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I look at it when learning inside of those organizations and like the skills that you actually take away to go when you do branch out. Like I mean, there's so many individuals who come into this industry, similar path, right? Career fair, got into one of the top 10 brokers that are out there. They learn the industry and then they branch out and go, whether they're starting a company or go take over, like with you did, the chief revenue officer over there. And it's like, because I started out at XPO and I worked there for a long time, and you don't realize it when you're in the system, but then when you get out of it, and then you're like, oh, wow, I had so many more resources at my disposal, so much more tangible experience that you can go out there and build. And, one of the things that I, going out there and really starting over from scratch in this industry, right? Like it's not very common for somebody to start a business or start off as an independent agent with no book of business at all and have to build up from scratch. And, for me, it was when I got back in, I'm like, all right, I got to go after like one thing, right? Because I saw the spray and pray methodology that was out there about like, we do everything, we're the best at everything. And that works when you're at some of those larger companies because they have designated LTL, intermodal, air, cost, like they have everything at your disposal. But when you're going out there and you're building up something, I personally am a big fan of choosing that ICP and then choosing that one thing to at least get the ball rolling. Because in today's environment, and I'd love to, get your take on this, like selling pre-COVID, vastly different than selling post-COVID.
Yeah, quite a bit. I think that the fact that it stands the test of time is specialization and intentionality matter. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into the mid-market shipper and why that's important in a bit here, but that was one of the biggest takeaways for me growing up through my career at Robinson was where you focus, you can win. Mm-hmm. And spray and pray model, to your point, it can work at scale. But if you're specialized and you can be very authentic in what you're selling and how you're explaining your value and what that means to your customers and prospective customers, that's what's differentiated. Mm-hmm. And yeah, selling pre-COVID is a lot different than selling post-COVID. I mean, the last 3 years have conditioned that buyer of transportation or supply chain services to not answer the phone. With technology advancements, we're flooding those people, and it's not always the right prospect either. Mm-hmm. So then getting to the right contact that can understand your value takes a bit more time.
How do you get to that point, right? Like, I think because, I look at it where when you're going after and you're starting to prospect, a shipper of any size out there, I think it's easy to like chase logos, right? You're like, oh, they're a big logo, I got to go after them. And I mean, there's a time and a place where I'm never going to tell anybody to not go after a certain type of thing, but there's a certain economic scale that a lot of these enterprise level shippers need for you to even like get at the table. And a lot of those relationships have been there for 25 years, right? Like it's a very, very tough one to crack into. And then again, it's like, if you're building up anything, you got to get to profitability, right? Like I'm not in business because I'm a nonprofit, right? Like I have to make money. I have to grow and scale my company. And then there's another economic scale of shipper that it just falls in down below. It's too inconsistent. Not saying that the freight's bad, but like if you plan on hiring, growing your company, you need consistent revenue coming through the books. And, on top of that, to your point about selling, As somebody who grew their business starting in 2023, 23, 24, 25, it was a lot slower than I thought it was going to be, because I was under the impression I had those pre-COVID selling tendencies where I'm like, all right, it's going to be an uphill battle, but it's not going to be what it was for us. And I, as a business owner, appreciate it a lot more now because I appreciate our customers at a much deeper level today than I probably ever would have. So there's a lot of benefit from that. But it's like, if you're going to differentiate yourself in the market, say you do get somebody on the phone, which is rare, very rare to get somebody on the phone. You got 5 seconds. I don't even think it's 15. You got 5 seconds to say something to buy yourself another 5 seconds. And that's why it's like, when you have your ICP, you have that specialization, you know what you're going after. You're going to be able to mention a couple of keywords that only somebody who actually moves that freight is going to be able to leverage to where you're going to get a supply chain manager or transportation manager's attention.
Yeah, look, some of the key learnings I had through my career, the heavier you focus into discovery and data analysis, the better your odds are of success and long-term success. Because it's like, I don't think anybody wants to be a flash in the pan and just go chase a load necessarily. Well, some people do, but we don't.
Yeah.
And so if you have that, then you can actually speak your customer's language. If you can speak their language, you're showing up at the same shows that they're at, you understand what matters to them, which is ultimately their customer. That's how you drive long-term success. And it's hard to portray that in the first email, the first cold call, the first LinkedIn message, or whatever that might be. And then again, if you take the factors that I mentioned through COVID, where we've, as an industry, conditioned that buying community to put up the stop sign and not want to talk to us, that's challenging. And everybody says that the differentiated service, of course. So showing up differently matters, certainly.
Yeah. It's, it is one of those things because I look at it where there is nothing I'm going to tell my prospects, Steve, in the first 10 conversations that they haven't been told before and burnt on before by somebody else, right? Like there's a very high probability that everything I say early on is going to be something that somebody has told them in the past and then have since ruined that relationship. And, you had mentioned what I think is the most important component of any prospecting angle that you're taking is our customer's customer. That is something, admittedly, I never pieced together when I was working for a large company, right? Because there was so much accounts, there was so much freight going through. You had at least me, I had that mentality where there's always going to be somebody who wants to work with us. And then now when I'm out there and I am having those discovery calls, I am speaking with these companies at a deeper level. And I am realizing now more than ever, everybody has competitors. There is not one thing that moves on our highway system in the United States where there isn't 150 companies that do the exact same thing as your customer. And that's where it's like, for me, when I'm out there talking to people, our main message is we want your customers to buy 100 more truckloads from you because of the service we provide you. Here's the service that we provide. It's not the automated outreach. It's none of that. And we break it down from them because it's like, there is so much that goes on out there. And then on top of it too, is it's like, I think like the one thing I wish I could properly message out there is my give a shit about them, right?
Yeah.
And their business. That's the one thing I haven't been able to figure out yet.
Same, man. I think like for us, we lean more towards consultation and advisory type solution, and which is even more challenging on the sales front because we do have to show up differently. And we can leverage our case studies, and we have some really great case studies that show how we think differently and the value that creates in specialized areas. But that doesn't mean that the person on the other end of the phone is going to answer or understand how much you care until you get into it. But when you do get those conversations, like we have a couple of customers recently say, you guys just think different. Okay, cool. That's probably the biggest compliment we could ever get as a 3PL, especially knowing who we're competing with on that business. So it takes time, but quality over quantity is certainly appreciated.
So how do you break that down, right? Like if we're looking at, developing an ICP, you're talking about the mid-market shipper, how do you build that proper outreach system? Because like, admittedly, that's for me, that's been the biggest struggle in building my company is the systems development, because it's like, I have a lot of great ideas, but it doesn't mean that it's going to match up in 6 months with results. And when you're bootstrapping your organization, you have limited capital, you have a limited runway to make this stuff work. So it's like, what are some of those key things that you've learned over your career, Steve, where it's like, hey, these are a couple of good steps to at least get the needle moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Let me start with saying, I'll go back to when I joined MVP, really strong company, founded in 2007 and scaling and new ownership or owner purchased company from the other owners and set his path forward. And that's why I joined. Part of that, me joining, was the first step is to evaluate the personnel, evaluate what tech is in place, and evaluate what processes support all of that to ensure there's value. So first and foremost, do you have the right people on the team? So everything has to be foundational.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that set, then you can truly understand where you're differentiating and creating value for your customers. From there, so like for us, it was, hey, let's stop being all things to everybody. We can and do everything from a modal perspective, but that doesn't, you won't see us communicating that. If a customer comes to us and asks as part of a solution, then yeah, sure, we'll move that flatbed load from here to there. But that's not our primary focus. So that allows you, okay, you know what your strengths are and you can really live and stand by that. Then you can narrow the scope of your ICP to say, okay, look, for us, it's food and beverage and it's manufacturers. Our company started in final mile and LTL and backed our way into truckload and all other modes of services. We have some warehouses. So that's us. Other 3PLs are very different. But I think finding that specific area in which you create value, it starts with the solid foundation. Do you have the right people that can articulate that value? Yes or no? And if yes, then great. And if no, well, then I think we all know what needs to happen from there.
Mm-hmm.
Tech evaluation matters because, to your point, there's a lot of opportunity to try different things to get that message out. And that's the part that is probably changing the fastest in our industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Setting 2-year commitments on about anything other than maybe TMS, thanks, Nova, is probably not the wisest decision because it is changing that fast. So you can always shortcut your way, but the humanization component of your value is really what people are buying.
How do you leverage your tech, and do you think people are not properly leveraging the data that they have internally? Because most people, I mean, I'm old enough now to know most people react, right? Like we are in a reactionary mindset more often than not. We're not very proactive. Everybody says, oh, we're proactive, we're this and that. But I'm maybe one of the few people out there who will admit we operate in a reactionary state a lot of times, and we almost overlook the tools that are at our disposal, where it's like, people want to, yeah, I'm not saying that the market's easy right now by any means, but it's not as volatile as certain people are trying to sell it. All right. And that's one of those things out there where, again, panic sells. I get it, you guys. Fear. But how are people missing their data and leveraging it properly to bring calmness to our customers? Because I am of the mindset freight brokerage is an extremely simple transaction that is overly complicated by a lot of different parties. Truck picks up at point A and delivers to point B. Our customers and our carriers want consistency. That's all they're looking for. Consistent freight, consistent rates. And that's as like complex, in my opinion, as we need to make it.
Yeah. I like to go immediately to attributes and characteristics that each customer has. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, if you're shipping widgets from point A to point B and time doesn't matter and you have infinite amount of, and it's low value and you have infinite amount of inventory space available, then okay, cool. It is just that simple. Live and die by the market, move it. But if you have teams, if you load on the weekends, if it's refrigerated, if you're delivering into retail, if it's, you can keep going down the line, there is a cost associated with each of those attributes. Mm-hmm. So what I think best in class looks like is taking that data, and I mean, that lives, if you think about customer success, it's the regular review, monthly, quarterly, here's what's happening in the market, here's the impact that that's having on the attributes that are unique to your business. Because your competitor's business, direct competitors, are going to look different. So really personalizing that is important. And that's where, especially at the mid-market level, that gets challenging because they don't have the same scale, the same resources, the same capital to evaluate that. And that's the value of a 3PL in that scenario. Mm-hmm. If you leverage the data, that helps tell the story, that drives longevity.
Do you think people overlook the mid-market? Because I've never understood why people stop, because like this is not Chris Jolly saying this. This is direct feedback over the entirety of my career from customers. Is people leave us when markets shift. And I get it, they're whether they have better paying customers or more volume customers that are out there. But like, to me, what you're describing here, and this is just something that we personally operate on internally at my company, is like when we have somebody in there, like we want to give them all the data, all the resources. This is what we're seeing in the market. These are these factors that are driving capacity constraints. These are these factors driving pricing. Most people tend to think that customers, shippers, manufacturers have access to all of this information, and they don't, right? Like that's why they work with providers to bring this information down to them so they're aware of it, right? Like it kind of baffles me the amount of people who overlook that opportunity to really dig deep with your shippers that are out there. I don't know why people think that customers are replaceable at that scale.
Yeah. My opinion on that, Chris, is that it's the difference of a partner and a vendor. Like if I'm chasing a load, well, then I'm probably just going to move on and look, that customer won't pay it, so therefore I move on to the next. Or perhaps there's opportunity to leverage all of your resources to this one big customer, and you have a choice to make. I have, as maybe a really small 3PL, they have finite resources, and they're having to make a decision on scale with one really large customer or support many small. Perhaps they take that angle. Through my career, I've had the opportunity to work with the biggest of the big enterprise to the smallest of the small startup shippers, and that middle can get overlooked during the cycles that even that we're in right now.
Yeah. What do you define as a mid-market shipper?
So for us, we're calling it 50 million to 250 million revenue. That's the easy answer. Yeah, because you look at it, whether you use Zoom or Sales Intel or Apollo or whatever, and how you're thought to define your ICP, but really think more about attributes beyond revenue. So what makes them unique? They could be a $500 million shipper, but they might not have all the capital and all the resources and all the other areas that we've discussed previously. And on the same vein, there might be a $20 million shipper, $10 million shipper that's emerging and really needs that expertise to help them win in their market. And again, I think our value as 3PLs is to enable our customers to win. Because if they win, we win. Let's make no mistake. We're all here to make money. So yeah.
No, because I think there's so many loose definitions out there where it comes down to it, right? Like, I mean, I love your definition of it. I would have brought the revenue number down a little bit more on that, but that's just my personal opinion on that. I look at like the footprint of the company. I look at somebody who's got, if they're touching multiple coasts, right? If they're on East Coast, West Coast facilities, or, they have more than, I look at that 3 to 5 range. I go out there and then how much a lot of that is spread out there. And we use a tool. We just signed up for them a couple months ago. It's called Optimus. And it is for business development. And we can get really granular with a lot of the data that's out there. And that's where it's like, I look at it where, I get the bootstrapping and, you might only have limited capital, but if I was to look at like as a broker, if I was going out there, the technology I would invest in, obviously first and foremost, CRM, number 2, TMS, right? And you could make that interchangeable. I really do. But third, the lead generation software that is at your disposal now is worth every penny because you can get extremely granular. You can get lane data now, right? Like you can get exactly where things are shipping in and out of. It is such a more hyper-focused sale that you can get to. And again, I look at it as it's a small investment overall. And if we're looking at the price point of a lot of this technology, 3 truckloads a month pay for it, like the profit that you get, like depending on the scale of your organization, it might be an oversimplistic thing, but it's like, if you're going up and building it out, like it's not out of your price range.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much available, and especially where AI is headed to connect all of those and to make those decisions faster is really what it's about. And the personalized outreach is really important. I mean, we were talking the other day, Chris, about how to differentiate and sending direct mail or sending an actual handwritten note that says you care and you're different. That can be something that sets you apart from the rest. That isn't technology, but you might not know. So if you know who specifically to send those to versus a guess, and tech can help you with that, well, you're one step further ahead than you were yesterday.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And I'm of the mindset that this is probably in I would say a 2029 thing. People are going to stop using technology at scale because it is going to, like, you and I would never know that we're actually real people talking to each other. I think that you're going to see a big AI dialer push here for outbound sales. And then you're going to see shippers, manufacturers, customers have a bot answering all of their phones. And then it's going to be bot to bot communication. And then there's going to be no progress made on the business development standpoint. Drivers, I think drivers are going to refuse to work with brokers that have AI dialers and AI carrier reps. It's a bold statement. I could be wrong. I just am already seeing rumblings out there from the driver community where they don't want to work with brokers who do not have actual people operating behind the scenes.
Yeah, look, I think in any business, if you have the ability to remove friction points, especially if you have the advantage, which the market is shifting and the carriers have more of a voice than they for sure have had in the last 3-4 years, then you're going to start to see some of that movement. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's again, a lot of what I say on the show is obviously it's just my opinion. It's I just look at with where things are, and again, I also look at the tools that are at brokers' disposal. And obviously, I don't talk to every single shipper in North America, but I think that at times we might be creating friction that we're not even aware of. And it's like, I look at it now where it's like, if my customer requests it and says, Chris, I need you to have this piece of technology, I'm buying that piece of technology and I'm implementing it into my organization. But I don't want to create operational bottlenecks by applying technology that's going to eventually cost me business out there.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're talking about humanization and what's irreplaceably human is actually a point of differentiation here in 2026 is amazing. Here we are.
No, dude, and that's it, right? But, so it's like, as you're going through a market shift right now, for the people out there who've never seen this before, right? Because for guys like us who've been in the industry for a while, this is kind of business as usual, right? Like, this is a cycle that we've seen multiple times throughout our career. How can you better prepare people out there who are watching and listening to this show about how they could have these conversations with their customers if they've never done this yet?
Yeah, I love that question. So I'm going to frame it in two ways. One, in the way you asked, and then the other side is from the shipper. So from a 3PL or carrier community, we should be talking to our customers about the areas that do back to the friction comment. How are they preparing for this upcycle? How aligned are they with finance? How often are they talking about budget and resiliency of their budget? Because if you miss your transportation or your supply chain budget as a result of the cost increases today, well, that has downstream impacts on procurement capabilities, inventory strategies, investments in the business, growth, and the list goes on and on and on. But if you can have that on the front side and you're talking to the CFO, which actually I just had a conversation with the CFO a couple of weeks ago on like exactly this. He's like, well, I don't know the right time. We're scaling, but we're going to move to the other coast and do we have enough volume to add a warehouse? It's like, well, the first thing you should do is if you have the data available, let's take a look, let's analyze that. And then we can create a budget and create a strategy and go execute against that strategy together. So if I'm selling, that's the angle I'm taking. I don't think our industry is doing that enough. I think what we see historically in upcycles is that we go, as an industry, go chase loads, and we're not taking a strategic approach. Mm-hmm. At least that's the perception that you hear from the shipper community. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, hey, make $1 today, but I'd rather make $1 for 20 years, right? And then on the shipper side, it's exactly the inverse of that. Okay, when my business today is probably not built for today and tomorrow's supply chain. It was built off of a supply chain from 3-4 years ago. In the mid-market, a lot of these companies are scaling. We're seeing a lot of them with SKU rationalization and really centering in depth in their own ICP, if you think of it that way. But they're not evaluating. We haven't seen many companies truly evaluate the impact that's having on their supply chain. So how does that impact budget? Do my lanes still make sense? Should I still go to an RFP annually or biannually or quarterly? Or should I think about this differently? What about reefer LTL versus multi-stop? Whatever it might be. So if I'm a mid-sized shipper, I'm digging heavy into what the strategy is because, yeah, look, there's fear-mongering happening today around what's happening in the market. But the reality is we're probably in this upcycle for somewhere between 18 and 24 months. Today, it's all muted because of supply. With any insert of demand, things are going to get crazy really quickly. And companies that are going to succeed have a strong supply chain.
Do you think the financial viability of your organization is going to be a talking point here in the near future? Like and I'm saying this more along the lines of, I know there's, rates are kind of raising in certain markets and it hasn't stabilized yet across the board, but we're eventually going to get to that stabilization point where customers are gonna be like, no, enough's enough. You got to get it done for this. And then brokers are going to be in a very tough spot because carrier rates are going to continue to rise and your margins are going to get depressed or compressed. I think that there is going to be, I don't want to say a mass exodus. I just think that a lot of brokers might quietly go away here over these next couple of years because everybody operates off of razor thin margins, right? Just because a broker makes 14% on a load, that is pre-expenses and everything, right? So like there's a lot of stuff that happens along those lines. So how do you properly market the financial stability of your company? Because I think that might be a talking point here in the coming months for brokers.
Yeah, I love that question. And we get that, and especially when you're speaking with the finance department, they're asking that, right? And it gets into what's your ownership strategy. And certainly if you're for one of the really big companies that we mentioned earlier, that's obvious. There's information readily available. For the mid-market, they're trying to understand who can best serve me today and into the future. So it's what's your ownership strategy? I want to talk to other customers. I want to understand longevity of your customers. We've had others ask us like really pointedly, like financial health questions, which gets a little interesting. But that's okay because you have to understand who's going to be there tomorrow for you. No different than we are, right? When we set up these programs, our job is to really simplify and again, remove all the attributes and just very much simplify the supply chain. So we need to treat this, we're taking that same path with the carrier community that we're working with. We want to make it predictable. We want them to be successful within reason. And but of course they need to be successful if we're successful for our customers and for their customers. Yeah. So I think it follows all the way along the chain.
No, I agree with that, right? Brokers are in a unique position where it's like, we got to find a way where all three parties win, right? Shipper wins, we win, carrier wins. And then you buy into that system and you build out from there. It's not always glamorous, but like there are so many more carriers than I think brokers realize that want to work with the same brokers time and time again. My organization has proven that, right? Like 85% of our freight is pre-booked with a handful of trucking companies. We build up our entire strategy is lane by lane basis. We find anywhere from 3 to 5 carriers that run that lane repeatedly or run that region repeatedly. First right of refusal to every single load that comes our way. And even right now, we're pre-booking sometimes 4 or 5 days in advance with a lot of these guys because they know the route that they're running, they know their availability, and we're able to provide consistent capacity when a lot of people are trying to sell to shippers right now. Oh, it's extremely volatile. I'm not saying it's not volatile out there at times, but like it's not as bad as people think. And again, fear sells. And, again, that's the beauty of the competitive free market that we operate in is the organizations out there that bring that stability in a time of chaos. This is your time to shine.
Yep. Yeah. We spend a lot of time talking to our customers about how we're insulating them from the market because there's news and there's reality. And then again, going back to their attributes of their business, what is impacted? Because when the carrier has their choice of 10 loads, and that they're that one truck, which load are they going to take? Is it the one that's predictable, that they know is there 52 weeks a year? Is it the load that has a ton of dwell time and a terrible driver experience at the loading dock that has 1-star Google reviews, like all of that? The answer is pretty obvious, right? So make your business pretty carrier friendly while you do this, and you can help beat the market.
No, I love it. Steve, I appreciate it. This flew by. I knew it was going to, man. Yeah. But how does anybody reach out to you guys? You guys hiring? How do people connect? How do they learn more?
Yeah, I love that. Especially mid-market shippers, come find us. MVPlogistics.com. Contact us. You can reach out to me directly, Steve Gabrick on LinkedIn. And we are hiring. We're in growth mode, so check us out.
Perfect. Steve, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you guys can't find Steve or MVP out there, hit me up. I would gladly put you guys in contact with them. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything.